The cover athlete of a sports title is viewed among the masses as a pretty big deal nowadays. Whoever gets selected to grace the front cover does a lot of promotion for the upcoming game, trying to convince people like us to buy the title. I never really cared about who's on the front cover. Growing up, whenever I got a new game, I would flip the case over to see all of the features listed on the back instead of staring at the front cover of the case. Even when it comes to my favorite NASCAR game of all time, which is NASCAR Thunder 2004, I don't talk about the cover of the game at all. I mean, it's fine. I guess if it's anything to comment on, it's why is Michael Waltrip the one side by side with Tony Stewart of all people. Despite me saying that I don't really care about who's on the cover of the game, I have recognized that it's been a lot of high profile drivers over the years that have never been the cover athlete for a NASCAR game. As a matter of fact, when you look at NASCAR games from 1998 to about 2015, there's only 3 drivers that have been the cover athlete for majority of those games. Those drivers being Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, and Dillon Murway Jr. It's only been 5 NASCAR games during that time span where those 3 drivers wasn't on the front cover. And for whatever reason, one of those drivers was Elliott Sadler. Someone from EA Sports had to be a big fan of this dude or something. What makes this even more strange is that he wasn't even driving for Robbie Yates Racing anymore once the game released. Anyway, I can understand why they kept going with the 3 biggest names in NASCAR during that time period, but there was other drivers during that time span that made themselves into stars, and surprisingly, never got asked to be on the cover of a NASCAR game. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. I'm going to list off 6 Cup Series drivers that should have been the cover athlete for a NASCAR game. And not only that, but I'm going to choose the NASCAR game that would have been most fitting for them to be on the cover of. Let's kick this off with Ryan Newman. When the Rocket Man came on the scene, you thought you was looking at a guy that was going to be the next big thing. He was in the same rookie class with Jimmie Johnson, and honestly, he was kinda outshining Jimmie at first. From 2002 to 2004, he won 11 races, 8 of those coming in one season, which is impressive. But what was really getting everyone's attention was the amount of poles he was racking up. He scored 26 poles during this time span. Whenever Newman took to the track for qualifying, you were glued to the TV to see if he can once again snag P1, and most of the time, he did just that. That's how he got the nickname Rocket Man after all. He was blazing quick in qualifying. Newman was very marketable around this time. He was winning a lot of races, and for whatever reason, EA Sports never approached him to be on the cover of one of their NASCAR games. It seemed like they were thinking about it for NASCAR 2005 Chase for the Cup, and I say that because look at the career mode prologue on that game. Who was that pulling up next to you at a red light challenging you to race? Ryan Newman. After you smoke his ass in that race, who was calling your phone helping you get your foot into NASCAR? Ryan Newman. Don't you think your cover athlete should be featured in all of this? Kevin Harvick is nowhere to be found during your career mode journey. Newman was even featured in the commercials for this game more than Harvick. It's like they wanted to go with him as the cover athlete but decided on Kevin Harvick last minute, and it's a decision that always baffles me. Yes, Harvick was a guy that was becoming a star as well, but he wasn't as accomplished and marketable as Ryan Newman during this time frame. I think Ryan Newman would have made the perfect cover athlete for NASCAR 2005 Chase for the Cup. Kasey Kahne is another NASCAR star that never graced the cover of a NASCAR game. This dude was one of the most hyped up drivers during the mid 2000s. He got inside of Ray Evernham's Cup cars and instantly showed speed. Despite him not winning a race in 2004, he already established himself as a big name by the end of his rookie season. Off the track, he was marketed as NASCAR's pretty boy, which meant if you saw him in a commercial, it was girls tripping over themselves for Kasey Kahne. Who knows, if he ended up on the cover of a NASCAR game, you probably would have had more girls buy the game, just saying. In 2006, he had a breakout season, scoring 6 wins, 6 poles, and made the chase. Despite him falling off throughout the chase and finishing 8th in the standings, it was still a monster year for him. NASCAR 07 was releasing that same year, and I always felt like he should have graced the cover of that game, but instead EA Sports went with someone that hadn't done shit since 2004. Here's someone that was hyped up and actually started living up to the hype in 2006 and was marketed pretty well by NASCAR just for EA Sports to skip out on him as their cover athlete for NASCAR 07. This next guy might shock y'all, but I always felt like Matt Kenseth was worthy of being a cover athlete. He's never been the most out there guy throughout most of his career, but he was getting the job done on the racetrack. Only a few years into his Cup career, he was a NASCAR champion and someone that was clean and respected by everyone he raced with, for the most part. Kenseth did become a little bit more flashy on and off the track during the later years in his career. He started to show more personality and he had some scuffles with a few guys. He went full on WWE on Brad Keselowski after the Charlotte Chase race, and people were shocked to see that from Matt Kenseth, but applaud him for finally showing that he has a backbone after getting pushed around for so many years. But the very next year, he did something that made him a very popular man. Not only Kenseth was wilding out doing shit like that, but he was putting up some good results around this time period despite him being in his mid 40s. I think he should have been on the cover of either NASCAR 15 or NASCAR He Evolution. Yeah, he's pretty old, not gonna lie. Kenseth's age was really starting to show during his time at JGR, but man, this dude should have graced the cover of a NASCAR game at least once. But I guess that's the story of Matt Kenseth's career, always overlooked.
That's rough, buddy.
Zuko can also say that about Brad Keselowski because he's never been on the front cover of a NASCAR game. Bad Brad was one of the most talked about drivers during the early 2010s. 2011 he came into his own. Even after dealing with a foot injury, it didn't set him back. The very next year, he was one of 2 drivers that won a NASCAR Cup Series championship within the past 8 years that wasn't Jimmy Johnson. It was a breath of fresh air. What was also impressive about Keselowski was him winning a title only 3 years into his Cup career. Brad was very impressive, but he also caused a lot of chaos. 2014 would be the peak of it. He was in over his head. With that being said, he went on to score 6 wins that season, which is the most he ever collected in the season. What also stood out about Brad Keselowski earlier in his Cup career was that he wanted to be the embodiment of change in NASCAR. If he could make a difference, he was going to do everything in his power to make something come to fruition. He cares deeply about NASCAR. He's investing a lot into the sport. To me, that's someone who I would want to be on the cover of a NASCAR game. That 2012 to about 2014 period where he was making a lot of noise on and off the track would have been perfect timing to put him on the front cover of a NASCAR game. You technically should have went with Keselowski for NASCAR 14 instead of Tony Stewart, who was on the decline around that time. Don't click off the video when I name this next driver, but I always thought Denny Hamlin deserved to be a NASCAR cover athlete. I had a lot to say about Denny Hamlin in a recent video that was actually positive, so I'll make this brief. He's been the biggest villain in NASCAR since 2017, he has 50 plus career wins, he's the most outspoken driver in the sport right now, and he owns a race team with Michael Jordan. Go ahead and put him on the front cover of NASCAR 25. Maybe it could be a special edition of NASCAR 25 that has Denny on the front cover with Michael Jordan that also comes with a 2311 Chicago Bulls scheme. Maybe have Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan as spotter options as well. Denny would do anything to promote something. It wouldn't be a bad decision at all to go with him as the cover athlete. I know Denny haters won't like it, but come on. I don't think they would be that petty and skip out on buying the game because he's on the front cover, especially if the game is good. But I'm all for Denny Hamlin being a NASCAR cover athlete. Surprisingly, it's never happened and it needs to happen ASAP. Finally on the list, this guy has pretty much achieved superstar status within the past couple of years, and that's Kyle Larson. He had a little bit of success at Chip Ganassi Racing, but he became a big star once he got to Hendrick. He's won over 20 races since 2021, got a Cup Series championship, and won many crown jewels. That's just his NASCAR accomplishments. On the dirt scene, he has won big crown jewels in that discipline like the Knoxville Nationals and the Chili Bowl. He ran the Indianapolis 500 and proceeded to qualify well and ran well in the race, and most likely would have gotten a top 5 or a top 10 if he didn't speed on pit road. The guy can drive anything and has a ton of pace. He also has one of the most recognizable paint schemes in modern day NASCAR. The Hendrick car scheme has become iconic and it's easy to point out on the track. I can say with confidence that Kyle Larson is the closest to being a superstar in NASCAR, and that's been missing for quite a while now ever since superstar drivers like Jeff Gordon, Earnhardt Jr, and Tony Stewart retired. NASCAR finally has one, and if I was iRacing, who's pretty much developing NASCAR 25, I wouldn't hesitate to put him on the front cover. Now some people are going to say that he probably will never be on the front cover of a game because of his huge mistake back in 2020, but I disagree. As time goes on, his image to the public continues to improve, especially as he continues to go out there and add to his legacy in auto racing. You can't just pass up on a huge name like Kyle Larson to be your cover athlete for a NASCAR game. So there you have it. These 6 NASCAR stars surprisingly never been on the cover for a NASCAR game. The cover of a NASCAR game isn't the biggest deal to me, but it is pretty shocking to me that these NASCAR stars I listed never graced the front cover. It could still happen for 3 of them since they're still active as I'm recording this video. I don't see them doing a Legends edition and having Matt Kenseth, for example, on the front cover. I think you can only do that with NASCAR's Mount Rushmore of drivers like Jeff Gordon, Richard Petty, or Dillon Murway Sr. I understand you can't just put anybody on the front cover of a sports title, but I feel like these drivers have had good enough careers and made a big enough impact on the sport to where they should have been looked at as front cover worthy. Alright, now it's time to hear from y'all. Is there anyone else that comes to mind that should have been on the front cover of a NASCAR game? Who do y'all want to see on the front cover of NASCAR 25? Do you even care about who gets to be the cover star when it comes to a NASCAR game and just sports titles in general? Let me know in the comments. I'm gonna go ahead and roll up out of here. Y'all have a good one. Peace.